No matter if points are gained or points are lost, there will be much to discuss. For analysis regarding tonight's Winnipeg Jets game, here are Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg, and your host, Drew Mandel. The Illegal Curve post-game show starts now.
Good evening, Winnipeg. Good evening, Manitoba. For all those joining us live this evening on our YouTube channel and all of our social media outlets, we say good evening, universe, and welcome to the Illegal Curve post-game show. With Dave Minuk, with Ezra Ginsburg, I'm your host, Drew Mandel. We're here to discuss the Winnipeg Jets' defeat tonight at the hands of the Florida Panthers, a 5-3 victory for the Panthers, this being the first game back on home ice for the Jets in over a month due to, of course, the COVID restrictions that have been and are still in place in this fair province of ours. The Jets losers 5-3 tonight, dropping their fifth in a row. They now fall to 17-5-7 on the season. And gentlemen, there's no other way.
17, 15, and 7. We know what you meant, though.
Yes, 17, 15, and 7. You knew what I meant. Five losses in a row. You know,
Drew,
what I
I've
meant.
made a lot more mistakes than you have in the 12 plus years we've been doing the show. So I have no problem, helping a brother out.
I appreciate the assistance there. If you want to help out a brother, the Winnipeg Jets hockey team needs some help. I'm not sure that you're going to be the solution to their problems, all due respect. But this is a Jets team, as I was sort of humming to Dave M before we got the post-game show started, that these playoff chances, if they still have playoff chances, are quickly and with each and every loss sliding away right out of the playoff race. The Winnipeg Jets are.
Yeah, and Dallas won again tonight, right, guys? Nice little, you guys know I'm a big Devils fan, so nice little rematch of the 2000 Stanley Cup Finals when my boy Jason Arnott won it for the Devils. So Dallas keeps winning, right? Joe Pavelski, I mean, has Joe Pavelski found the fountain of youth? Like, he's playing unbelievably right now. So, yeah, I mean, we know it's an uphill climb, guys. Like, let's not like point out Colorado right now. Let's just point out the wild card race. Like, the Jets obviously have a ton of talent, but you've got Vancouver coming in Thursday night, and Vancouver is just a point or two behind the Jets. Last time I checked, at least. So, I mean, you think of Vancouver as kind of like this bottom feeder, and don't get me wrong, I don't think the Vancouver Canucks are very good. But look at the Jets have lost 5 games in a row, and yeah, you got a couple of points, on the road trip there, but you didn't get any wins. And this was just a game, guys, that I thought the Jets couldn't keep up with the Panthers' speed and skill. And yeah, the Jets tied it up there in the third period, and I'm sure we're going to get into some of the goals. Cole Perfetti was an absolute beast. Like, what a pass to Pierre-Luc Dubois right in front of the net. Just absolutely, embarrasses Radko Gudas, who went down to block the pass attempt. But I mean, I just thought that, the Panthers, just their speed and skill just took over in the second period of this game. And, Connor Hellebuyck, obviously, we're probably going to talk about, the clearing attempt, the Anton Lundell goal. I mean, originally it looked, guys, like it went off a stanchion in the glass, but Sam Reinhart actually got a piece of that. It was a really smart play by Reinhart. I actually had to look at the replay because originally I kind of wasn't sure what the hell happened there. So obviously Hellebuyck 2 games in a row where just, unfortunate bounces, unfortunate plays. We know, he has trouble handling the puck at times, but I mean, look at who scored the goals tonight, right, guys? Like, it wasn't who you thought necessarily, right? It wasn't Alexander Barkov or Jonathan Huberdeau. It was Mason Marchment and Anton Lundell, right? So obviously
third line goal scoring, depth scoring from the Florida Panthers. That's what they
Carter
got.
Verhaeghe was the other guy.
Carter Verhaeghe, a guy that they got from Tampa Bay. He's not on their third line. He's a pretty good player. But Marchment and Lundell are sort of the anchors of that Panthers third line. Look, this to me, there was just a talent disparity on the ice tonight. The Florida Panthers, Dave M., you were in the building, I presume, and I presume you were there and then made it back home, giving me the thumbs up that my presumption was correct. Teleportation. Well, with only 250 people there, there's no traffic you have to beat to get home in time.
Shout out to the guy wearing the Winnie the Pooh costume, by the way. I don't know if you saw that, Drew. They showed it. It was hilarious.
That wasn't Dave, I don't think. I'm hopeful that wasn't Dave. There was a talent disparity on the ice tonight. And sometimes it's as simple as that. I mean, the Florida Panthers, not telling anybody anything they don't know, are one of the best teams in the NHL record-wise, and the Jets can't keep up with those teams. They're just not as good as the best teams in the league. Not as good as the Colorado Avalanche. We remember the 7-1 defeat a few weeks back. They're not as good as the Florida Panthers. And this wasn't the Panthers playing their best game by any stretch of the imagination. I thought Florida was, fairly loose at times.
End of a 5-game road trip, right?
End of a 5-game road trip, absolutely. But they figured, okay, they knew that they were sort of toying with the Jets in that wave after wave after wave of talent, and the Jets just couldn't keep up, particularly at times in their own zone, Dave.
Yeah, I mean, we saw a number of instances where this team was just didn't look like they were right. And it seemed like they were going to try and get into a bit of a track meet with the Florida Panthers. But right now, that's probably not a good move based on how, solid Florida is. And it's interesting. Florida, I was looking at their record getting ready for, today, and it's, they're an amazing home team. They're 21-3 this season at home, and they were simply 7-6-5 on the road. So, I mean, they weren't a dominant road team by any stretch of the imagination. Now they're 8-6-5, of course, with today's win, but they're a very good team, and you can see it. And Mason Marchment obviously was channeling the Brian Marchment Jets 1.0 1987 first round pick, even though his dad was a defenseman. But I mean, Mason Marchment looked like he was all world today, and he had like 3 good chances before he scored, and then he easily could have had 5 goals against the Winnipeg Jets. So yeah, I mean, the Jets were loose. They just didn't look comfortable really, because they'd score. You think, okay, well, here's, they'd come back, and then all of a sudden you'd have a letdown, right? So Kyle Connor scores 50 seconds after Marchment scored, and then 5 minutes later, less than 5 minutes later, Lundell gets the goal. So like, that's the problem, and they just didn't have that sort of consistency of being able to kind of put something together and then have a pushback. And so you think, where is it? And obviously, I don't want to minimize it. Losing Josh Morrissey is massive for this team. I mean, he's averaging over 25 minutes a game, at least in his last 5, because I was looking at that when he was put on COVID protocol. And remember, I mean, and I think they deleted the picture, but there's a picture of Josh Morrissey from coming into morning skate today, right? So he looked like he was fine. He practiced with the team. And then, an hour before puck drop, suddenly there's 8 transactions made. And so you're going, what the hell is going on? And so you lose Josh Morrissey, which obviously is, like I said, is a huge problem when you're playing against a Florida team where you need a defenseman like him to be able to, eat up minutes and be effective defensively. And so it's a tall task. Look, Ville Heinola, and I know we're going to want to talk about him today. What an unenviable position for him to be put in. I mean, he's playing against the number 1 team, one of the number 1 teams in the NHL. Hasn't played much because of either he was had COVID protocol or he was on the taxi squad. So hasn't had a ton of games, and then he's paired with Nathan Beaulieu, right? So, I mean, not an enviable position to put him into. And look, if you're going to make some sort of statement about what Ville Heinola is based on one game, you're making a big mistake, because tonight is not some sort of testament to what he is. And like I said, I would have said the same thing if he would have scored 3 goals and the Jets would have won 6-2. Like, you don't base statements, you don't base an assessment of a player on one game. So I mean, I don't think it was a great game for Ville Heinola, but I'm also not gonna castigate the kid for his first game in a month.
I don't think the Ville Heinola is the reason the Winnipeg Jets lost. I think the Winnipeg Jets lost because they were too soft in their own zone, as Ryan has said in the comments, and I've got up on the screen. Look, how many good chances from the slot area did the Panthers have that they didn't score on? Because they scored 5 goals, and most of those goals came from the slot area. They had many other chances throughout the course of this game. It was easy. I think it was easy for the Florida Panthers to play against the Winnipeg Jets tonight. And you shouldn't ever be easy to play against. That's the sign of a team.
Especially in your home arena.
Yeah.
like we talked about, when you haven't been at home for a game in, I think it's 37. I just wanted to say something before we go back to you, Drew. Like, to the point of being too soft to play against, sometimes I think, when you say things like that, people think it's a bit of an oversimplification, but look at the winning goal that was scored, right? Like the winning goal, Kyle Connor and Pierre-Luc Dubois, again, those guys have been the two best Jets forwards all year long.
Yeah.
But when you have Alex Barkov there, you just can't be cute like that.
Mhm.
And obviously, the goal is just it's a big rebound by Connor Hellebuck, and we talked about Carter Verhaeghe, who's been a nice pickup for them. He just puts in the rebound. Like they made it too easy on the Panthers tonight. 99% of the time, Connor Dubois, they make that play and they go up the ice, and who knows if they create a scoring chance if they get it out. But it's just with Alex Barkov, the best defensive center in the entire world, there, I thought it was fitting. And then he obviously puts it on net, comes back to Ekblad. We talked about, Verhaeghe. It's just a, Johnny on the spot type of goal. But I agree. They were too soft to play against tonight.
14 high danger chances for the Florida Panthers at 5-on-5 tonight. I mean, that's too many. I mean, there's been weeks where teams haven't got 14 combined. I mean, that's just against the team. When you're playing against the Panthers team, you're not as talented as they are before the game starts, especially when you're got some injuries. So you're not talented enough. You're less talented than the opposition to begin with. And then
I'll say though, Drew, if you have Ehlers and Morrissey, though, it's a lot closer.
Well, of course, but they don't have Ehlers and Morrissey. So
Right.
I mean, I'm talking about
no.
tonight.
I'm just saying tonight. Yeah. You're right. Yep, I agree.
Tonight in a vacuum, you're not as talented as Florida.
In a Dyson.
What was the Jets' game plan? What was the approach to combating that deficiency, that lack of talent, the discrepancy between the two teams talent-wise? Because I honestly don't know what it was. I mean, I can't believe that the approach was to get into a track meet with the Panthers, because as entertaining as that was for the first, 2 periods or so, Florida's ultimately going to win that one. They just are, because they have more scoring talent up and down the roster than the Jets do, because Scheifele and Wheeler and Kopp haven't been producing offensively. So you can't really count on them as a forward line that's going to produce. The only forward line that produces on a consistent basis for the Jets is, of course, Dubois, Connor, and Perfetti. So you're not going to want to get into a up and down, back and forth track meet with the Panthers, but that's the way the Jets played. So I honestly don't know what the approach was. I was thinking about this, and it's probably something we can talk about in more detail on Saturday's Illegal Curve Hockey Show, 9 a.m. back here on our YouTube channel. But what's the identity of this Winnipeg Jets team? Because I don't know what it is. And game in and game out, it seems to change, which tells me that you don't really have an identity.
Yeah, I mean, look, why do you practice? You practice to not make mistakes, right? That's generally why you're practicing to learn the patterns of your team. And to me, a lot of the mistakes that the Jets made, that the Panthers capitalized on, were self-inflicted, were just mental errors, as he just touched on that Verhaeghe goal. I mean, that's just a mistake at the blue line. You have the puck. How many times did the Jets have the puck? They don't get rid of it. And Florida's on top of them. And, look, they had some opportunities on the power play because Florida is not actually a very passive, I thought, PK for the most part. They got a little more aggressive as the game went on, but I thought they actually were very passive early. And it's a good question, Drew, but I just think it's just I think you can kind of boil it down if you want to look at for a simplistic answer is they just made mistakes, and the Panthers are good enough to capitalize on them. So, I mean, you're not playing a team that is limping in here. I mean, like, as you said, this is the end of a road trip. They're excited to go home, and they're not happy with their game in Seattle where they lost. So they want to have one good effort and then go back home and feeling good about themselves. The Jets, they're playing their first game in Winnipeg since over a month. 24th was that game against the Blues. But who cares? I mean, I don't know why that even matters, why that narrative matters at least.
It doesn't.
But so you've got to you come back and like I said earlier, to me the biggest thing for the Jets was Marchment scores when Marchman scored that goal, and remember, he scored 2:09 into the first period, but he also had a number of chances.
Yeah.
So you're thinking to yourself, like, and I was looking around, I'm in the press box, and I'm looking around on my left or my right, and I'm thinking to myself, like, this could be ugly quickly. And then, of course, the Jets do manage to come back, right? Paul Stastny really heads up play. Nice pass by Adam Lowry back to Brendan Dillon, who puts it on net. Austin Baganski, credit for, kind of stirring things up in front of the Panthers goal and allows Paul Stastny to score his ninth. So the Jets start to kind of get the flow back, and you're thinking, okay, and then Marchman scores a few minutes later, and then they're able to reply. So every time you thought the Jets were kind of about to be out of it, they kind of stayed in it. And so you're thinking to yourself, okay, but are they going to be able to just tread water, or are they going to be able to kind of overcome things? You didn't get the sense that they were going to be able to overcome things, although they did start the second period in kind of I think they were out shooting them like it was like 19-12. But then all of a sudden you looked up again, and the end of the period, I think, was 24-20 for Florida. So, the Jets, they were able to stand in with them for a bit. But as I said earlier, you lose Josh Morrissey. You don't have, as he said, you don't have Nikolai Ehlers. I'm not here to make excuses for the team, but you're just not as talented as your opponent. So if you're not as talented, then you have to play sound defensively as a unit. And the Jets didn't do that. And as a result, they lost the game.
Well, and going back to, Drew was talking about identity and how it seems like the identity or the way that the Jets play kind of changes from night to night. I think, if you're asking, the Jets, whether that's, Dave Lowry, the coaching staff, the players, the management, what they tell you their identity isn't necessarily what we see on a nightly basis. Like, we watch these games, and
Sure.
If I could kind of sum up the Jets right now, I would say that they're too loose defensively, and they show flashes of offensive skill and speed, but you rarely see it for 60 minutes. Like, how many times through the first what are we at, game 38 or 37, however many games we're at right now, around
39
or 39, there you go, my age. So we just haven't seen enough consistency. Like, we saw it earlier in the season. We've talked a lot about how the Jets started off 9-3-3. That seems like it might as well be 5 years ago, right? Like, that is what we're seeing from this Jets team. Like, we talked about it, like Pierre-Luc Dubois, Kyle Connor, Cole Perfetti. Like, that's a dangerous line right now. Like, that line can go up against any NHL team right now and be dangerous and hold their own. But even with injuries and even with COVID protocol, like, I agree with what Dave said. Like, it's easy to kind of say, well, injuries don't matter. Every team's dealing with that. Yeah, but when you don't have a half of your top 6D, 3 top 6D is what I meant to say, in Morrissey and DeMello and Stanley. I mean, that's huge, especially when you're going up against the Panthers, who are right now a Stanley Cup contender. Right, so you can't take that out of it. Well, it's not an excuse, but you also can't take it out of it.
You can't take it. You're right, Ezzy, in that the Jets' defense was diminished tonight because of injuries and because of COVID and everything like that.
And I wanted to just quickly say, Drew, I thought Dillon and Pionk were really good. I mean, I realized on the fifth goal that was scored by Sam Bennett, I mean, Dillon, gets walked. There's a little bit of a flyby there, but I actually thought Dillon and Pionk were really solid, and that's not surprising considering that's the only regular D pair that was together tonight.
But and that's fine, and you make a valid point and everything. But if you know that you're diminished defensively, that means you have to it has to be a team focus to tighten up defensively. Before the game, it's not like it's not like these guys played and then got injured in the game. Before the game, they knew what their defensive corps looked like. So you have to tighten it up. You have to have that commitment on the D zone before you start thinking offense. And they didn't have that. There was none of that tenaciousness and tenacity necessary to compensate for an inexperienced defense playing tonight. It was loosey-goosey. It was easy. The Panthers could walk in. Nobody touched them. God forbid the Jets hit anybody. I mean, you can't just let the opposition walk into the high danger zone anytime they want. A team as good as Florida is eventually going to score multiple goals. And the Jets, were game and they tried to come back, and they did so on a few different occasions, but at no point in time did the Jets change their approach. And that, to me, is, I mean, that's reminiscent of
concerning.
the Jets. It's reminiscent of the Jets, before they had their real success. That's reminiscent of the Jets of 5-6 years ago, before that they became, the juggernaut, meaning one Western Conference Finals appearance. I mean, they were easy to play against tonight. And the guys on the roster that you think should be adding that sandpaper element and making it difficult to play against, well, there was only one guy who I thought was the least bit physical for the Jets tonight, and that was Pierre-Luc Dubois, and he's been the best player all year round. I think he's got to be sitting back in there looking around and saying to the rest of his teammates, what the bleep? Why is nobody else doing the little things necessary to make life difficult for our opponents? Dave?
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. Like there it's one thing, again, like we talked about, to preach going hard to the net and preaching all of these things, and it's another thing to go out and do it. And we've seen the Jets do it, but we've also seen the Jets like tonight, where it just looks like you're not necessarily going through the motions, but in that third period, it was a bit of a weak effort from the Jets, I would say, in that third period. And Florida's a great team. Like I don't think anybody's going to argue with that right now. But when you talk about a couple of goals tonight are just rebound goals. Like I was telling Dave here, like after Dave came back from the rink, like that goal by Sam Bennett, like that's just too easy. Like Anthony Duclair just kind of Duclair's a good player. I'm not taking anything away from Duclair. I mean, he's definitely revived his NHL career. But Stastny's there. Not the best back check from Stastny. And again, it's easy for me. I'm not an NHL player. I just talk about the Jets. It's easy for me to point this out, but it's also easy for anybody who's an average NHL fan to watch the Jets and say that they're not very good defensively right now. And that's the biggest concern. I think we can talk about how there are certain players on the Jets that need to produce more offensively, like a guy like Adam Lowry. Again, not singling him out, just he's a guy that hasn't been scoring a lot lately. So it's easy to say that the Jets could be getting goals from other sources, but right now the biggest problem on the Jets is the way that they're playing defensively. And I'm not sure if it's more systems or if it's a question of personnel, because we talked about, I think the Jets really miss Dylan DeMello. I realize he's been a regular in the lineup. And the Jets penalty kill has been good. And DeMello,
he's been out of the lineup for 2 games. I just
said that.
I know you did, but missing Dylan DeMello tonight is, with all due respect to Dylan DeMello, he's not going to be the difference maker in tonight's game. I don't.
Well, Drew, he's one of their best defensive defensemen, so I think it would matter a little bit.
Would you rather have Dylan DeMello or Nathan Beaulieu?
Well, I'd much rather have Dylan DeMello. I'm not. Look, I don't think it was on the. No, I don't think it was on the defense.
Did you see Nathan Beaulieu in those first how many goals against? So then, what are you talking about?
I've seen enough.
But Drew, just imagine having Dylan DeMello with Ville Heinola. I mean, it's a different story. So, so Izzy's point stands. If you had Dylan DeMello in the lineup, it's probably a little bit of a different thing.
Look, I've seen way more of Nathan Beaulieu than I ever need to see again. I've seen enough of Nathan Beaulieu. I'm not understanding quite the concern of if the Jets were to put him.
He really struggled tonight.
If the Jets were to put him through on waivers, God forbid they lose Nathan Beaulieu, the organization makes it sound like it's getting cut to the core if they lose Nathan Beaulieu, with all due respect.
Definitely help with the salary cap, though, Drew.
Well, it would help with this. That's what I'm saying. So you lose him on waivers, not the end of the world.
Yeah.
Makes no sense, by the way, why they wouldn't have played Kovacevic tonight.
Well, I was going to say, Dave, Heinola and Kovacevic, how much have they played together at the AHL level? How much familiarity do they have with each other, at least, through playing with the Moose together? Yeah,
I probably would have played Heinola with Schmidt, maybe. That's very offensive, but they'd make a hell of a good first pass. And then you could even put Sandberg with Kovacevic, because they've got about 36 to 40 games in the AHL together. So those two guys read each other extremely well. Kovacevic just played with Heinola, so those guys could play together. Right. And then you could have, they're probably going to want to spread it out with Pionk and Dylan and have one of those guys. Although Kovacevic and Dylan would make for a big. They're both, I think, 6'5", big boy pair. Kovacevic can skate. I think it's a mistake, because I think if you're the Jets, Kovacevic will need waivers. He'll need to clear waivers next year. Now he's waiver exempt. So why you wouldn't want to give him a shot in the NHL, see what you have in him. I understand you need to win the game, but the guy is one of the better defenders on your team. He eats up minutes in the AHL. So I think that's a mistake by the organization. I think they had an opportunity to, when I heard DeMello was out, we didn't know what his status was. We had just heard on that he was out with a lower body injury. And I had said, well, why, it could be interesting to see if we get a chance to see Johnny Kovacevic, 2017 third rounder. And a lot of people were like, well, what about Ville Heinola? I said, well, Ville Heinola doesn't play on the right side. And that's where Dylan DeMello is. And that's what you're trying to replace. Why the Jets felt the need. I mean, Johnny Kovacevic kills penalty. It's just a mistake. I mean, most people say, oh, well, they're giving other young guys. You give young guys chances oftentimes because of injury, right? Would Cole Perfetti be in the NHL right now if Nikolai Ehlers wasn't injured and Blake Wheeler wasn't injured? Questionable. I don't know. Mm-hmm. He's looked good, and he looked really good tonight.
I was going to say, Dave, and in a game like tonight where you've got Samberg in, you've got Perfetti in, you've got Heinola in, like that's even more reason to throw Kovacevic. Like that argument that, we're going with more of a veteran, physical, come on. Like he doesn't add anything. Again, Nathan Beaulieu, good guy, all accounts. Like I don't know him personally, obviously. I'm not around the team. Everybody says like he's a well-liked guy. I know that on the Jets.
You're not trying to win because you're well-liked.
Well, but at this point, like he's, I don't know, number 9 or number 10 on the depth chart for defensemen.
And if he's going to be in the lineup for a physical presence, then play physical. I mean, then it's incumbent on you to not let the Panthers be able to waltz their way into the
How many goals was he on for tonight? 3?
I mean, we know he was on
at least 2.
The first 2, right? Yeah.
First 2, and I think he was on for the 4th one as well.
Well, let me the one.
That was Carter Verhaeghe's. That was the winning goal.
Yeah. No, I don't think he was on for the Verhaeghe goal, but anyways, it doesn't matter. Point is, maybe it was the
no. He was just on for 2. But the point, I mean, even besides those 2 goals that he was on the ice for, which is set the tone for the game, is if you're going to be there because you're a physical guy and maybe you can that's the element you're bringing to the table, then bring that element to the table because you're not there for your offense. And the same goes to a guy like Adam Lowry. That's what I was trying to get in there earlier. I mean, Adam Lowry, we know, has very little offensive touch. It's just clear at this point of his career that whatever offensive touch he may have once had is pretty much gone. I mean, he had a great move there late in the game and beat Bobrovsky, but slid it right through the blue paint. He's just not going to be an offensive force. Well, that's fine if you're going to be a defensive force, if you're going to be a physical force out there, because if Pierre-Luc Dubois is throwing his body around and he looks around and he sees none of his other teammates are doing so, if I'm Pierre-Luc Dubois, I'm thinking to myself, why aren't you doing that, Adam Lowry? Why aren't you throwing your weight around? Why aren't you playing with a physical edge to your game where you're finishing every check? Because right now, the Jets, I mean, it's been this way for a number of years. The Jets are as soft to play against as almost any team that you see in the league.
Well, I mean, I've said for a long time that I think Adam Lowry is better suited to be your 4th line center and, in a shutdown role if you want to have him there, but he doesn't provide the offense sufficient to be a 3rd line center to my mind. And I think that you need to have 3 lines going, and the Jets just don't have that right now. So, I mean, I'm not going to disagree with you, Drew. I think that you're right. I think Adam Lowry, is defensively responsible generally. I know he made a mistake tonight, but I think his dad said, you have to play to what your strength is and be what you are. If you're not going to produce, then you have to be able to do other things. And the other things in that toolbox are supposed to be defensive play. Well, I mean, that's one of the things and hitting. I mean, laying the body, you're right. It's funny because we've talked about this before. A lot of people say when, especially when it's not teams that Jets play often, but teams when they go out east, they'll say something like, "Oh, the Jets were a big, physical, heavy team." I thought, boy, people are in a time warp. They're thinking this is like a team from 4 years ago. And the truth is, I saw it in the comments earlier. The reality is the only guy who really as a forward, I should say, not defensively, because Brendan Dillon hits a lot, but really the only forward who lays the body is Pierre-Luc Dubois. I mean, how many times have if I'm in charge of Twitter or you are, Drew, but like you say, Pierre-Luc Dubois out there making friends, because he's laying the body. So that's kind of that,
because he's making life difficult for the opposition.
That's right.
And he's the only one who does it.
It's not. Yeah, it's definitely not happening enough. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's astounding to me. I mean, I don't know. The coach has been changed out. Dave Lowry's in there as an interim coach, but it's the same problems that were affecting this team before. It's the inconsistency. It's the lack of an identity. It's the ease in which you can play against the Jets that hasn't changed at all, Ezzy. There was a bit of a bump when Lowry got hired, and of course the games were start and stop, and they had that 4-1-1 stretch. Well, that 4-1-1 stretch is gone by the wayside, having lost 5 games in a row now.
Yeah, there's just no time left for the Jets. They're just running out of time, right? Like we talked about it. I mean, now you have to worry about a team like Dallas. Like the Jets have to worry about themselves, but I mean, they're just not in a position where they can, go into these games and not come out with at least a point. So, yeah, I think that it's a team that I think at times lacks a little cohesiveness, and I think that you're always kind of depending on the Connors and the Dubois and the Scheifele's to kind of bail you out and tie the game up. Like how many times as of late over the last however many games, let's say 4 or 5 games, are the Jets chasing a game, right? Like they didn't have the lead tonight and they were never in control of this game. And another thing too, right? Like talking about the speed and everything like that, like it's not just 1 or 2 players, right? Like this Florida Panthers team is just a fast team overall. Like we talked about an Anton Lundell who we thought might be an option for the Jets the year they picked Heinola in 2020. He's really good, player. Right? And he's probably their 6th or 7th best forward. Sam Bennett. Did I read that correctly? That Sam Bennett has 18 goals this year?
Yeah, he's been terrific since coming over.
Incredible. Like Bennett's a guy that by all accounts, you would say that he was a bit of a bust as a 4th overall pick. You still might say that, but he's got 18 goals this year. He's not looking like a bust now, right? So I mean, it's hard to watch some of these games because that the Jets aren't just getting beat by the better team. They're not playing at the level that they can play at. And yeah, no Ehlers, no Morrissey, no DeMello, no Stanley, but you've still got Connor and Dubois and Scheifele and Wheeler and Kopp and, Nate Schmidt. So it's like you still have enough guys. Look at the Moose. I mean, Dave has been documenting this on our website, illegalcurve.com. I mean, the Moose have been undermanned. They just beat, the best team in the American Hockey League back to back. So, I mean, there's ways guys can, come in and contribute. And like you said, I mean, you got like a bit of a bump when Dylan Sandberg and Declan Chisholm came into the lineup. But tonight was just a game in which you kind of just say to yourself, like, this Florida team you're catching a Florida team that has, what do they have, points in 12 of their last 14, something like that, right? I think they were 10-2-1 going into this game, something like that. So you're facing a team that's playing at their peak, right? Like the Panthers, you can't get much better than where the Panthers are at right now, right? And the Jets are a team that's middling.
Well, it's funny. The Panthers have lost, I think, 3 of their games they've lost, and they haven't lost very many this year, as you mentioned, Ezzy. I mean, I think 3 of their losses have come to 2 have come to Seattle and 1's come to Ottawa. So they have a tendency to not play up to their level when they're playing against some of the weaker teams that they faced. Tonight, obviously, the Jets couldn't take advantage of that. To be honest, I didn't think Florida played a fantastic hockey game. I thought that Florida played probably pretty average for them, but then they just said, "Okay, fine, we'll take the win." You're not going to make it. It struck me that if the Jets had made things a little bit difficult for Florida may not have had the necessary push to overcome that. But the Jets didn't make it the least bit easy, or didn't make it the least bit difficult, for Florida. And as a result, a 5-3 Panthers win, and the Jets are left scratching their head, wondering how they got off this 5-game losing streak ahead of the Thursday night contest against the Vancouver Canucks. Let's take our break. When we come back, much more on tonight's Jets and Panthers game, as he's going to give away a toque, courtesy of our friends of Tough Talk. Dave M will talk about the Moose because, well, that's what Dave M does here on the show, and we love him for it.
Well, we need some good news.
Yeah, there you go. You need some good news after the Moose with an impressive performance on Saturday and Sunday of this weekend. So we'll talk a little bit about that, much more about the Jets and the Panthers. We'll look ahead to Thursday. Everyone hang out, vent in the chat room. You're doing a great job keeping the conversation nice and sane, which we appreciate. Smash the like button if you haven't already done so. You're watching the Illegal Curve post-game show. We're live on our YouTube channel and all of our social media platforms.
Jerry Seinfeld, Chris Rock, Jon Stewart, Dennis Miller, Brad Garrett, the biggest acts and all the up-and-comers. They've all made their mark at Rumors Comedy Club, North America's longest-running independent comedy club. Rumors has kept Winnipeg laughing for over 25 years. When was the last time you laughed out loud? Make it a great night out with friends or book your office or birthday party, even a fundraising event at Rumors. Get all the details and dates on upcoming shows at rumorscomedyclub.com.
He winds up. Oh! Looks like Ezzy took that one right in the choppers.
A blistering fast puck hurts like HE double hockey sticks. That's why I let the pros at Linden Market Dental Center turn my yow into
wow.
Get your brilliant smile back with state-of-the-art restorative and cosmetic dentistry from real pros.
And remember, always wear a mouth guard.
Now that's solid on ice advice. Learn more at lindenmarketdentalcenter.com. Creating smiles for life.
Whoa, Ezzy, everything okay? You look stressed.
Of course I'm stressed. We're moving, the house is upside down, the kids failed miserably at packing the fine china, and my life is in chaos. Chaos!
Yes, that does sound like a problem.
What am I going to do?
Ezzy, relax. Rolly's Transfer Moving and Storage is the answer. With 60 years of experience in moving Manitobans and a track record of exemplary customer service, one call to Rolly's and your stress is gone. No job is too big or too small. Just visit Rollies.com and they will take it from there.
Thanks, Dave, and thank you, Rollies Transfer Moving and Storage, online at Rollies.com.
Hey boys, finding parking on game day shouldn't take longer than the Minute Minute.
It shouldn't take longer than 1 minute?
Yeah, less than a minute? I spend at least 20 driving around to find street parking, or if I'm in a rush to the game, I'll shovel out 20 at a parkade.
You're both doing it wrong. There's this app called Grid Park. It lets you find and pre-book your parking spot on game days, and you can reserve your spot up to 1 month in advance. And guess how much you'll pay?
Tell me, Dave. You know I love a deal.
Ezzy, $5.
Come on, $5?
Yeah, and it's just 2 blocks from the arena.
The Grid Park app?
Yep, spelled G-R-Y-D Park. And you know what else?
There's more?
Our listeners get their first park free with the code FIRSTPARK.
Wow, so they just download the Grid Park app and pre-book their next game day spot for free?
Yeah, you got it, Ez. Promo code FIRSTPARK. Only on the Grid Park app.
Hi, it's Drew from Illegal Curve here. Selling your home can be stressful, but it wasn't for me. Thanks to my friends at Zappia Group Realty, they made the process so easy. My home sold within 48 hours and with multiple offers. Zappia Group Realty took care of everything with their exquisite customer service and attention to detail. If you want to sell your home for more in less time, get started by talking to Frank and Mauro Zappia of Zappia Group Realty. Online at zappiagroup.com.
Whether it's watching the game with friends, pizza night with the family, or date night for two, this holiday season, give the gift of special occasions. Get a free $10 promo card when you buy a $50 gift card from Boston Pizza. Because nobody regifts pizza.
For 3 generations and over 80 years, Tough Duck has been making apparel that works and plays as hard as the people who wear it. From jackets to work boots and everything in between, Tough Duck's clothing can handle the harshest environments, even the Illegal Curve hockey show. Work to live, live to play. Visit toughduck.com. Welcome back to the Illegal Curve post-game show. Drew Mandel, Dave Minuk, Ezra Ginsburg with you. It's a Tuesday evening, a little bit after 10 o'clock. Nice to see so many familiar faces, so many new faces joining us in the chat. If you haven't already done so, smash the like button, subscribe to our YouTube channel, subscribe to the podcast. That way you get it sent to you each and every time we go live. And of course, you get alerted each and every time we go live here on the YouTube channel as well. Gentlemen, we're talking about the Winnipeg Jets' defeat tonight at the hands of the Florida Panthers. Eric Comrie or Connor Hellebuck on Thursday, in your opinion, against the Vancouver Canucks?
Eric Comrie. It's 100% Eric Comrie.
Really, 100%.
Well, he hasn't-
That sounds like a Ginsburg guarantee.
Well, I mean, think about it. He hasn't played since December 10th, coincidentally against the Vancouver Canucks, and then he's been out with they've been running with Connor Hellebuck, and obviously Eric Comrie had the COVID situation, so that wasn't ideal. He didn't get on the ice till last week, so you knew he wasn't going to get the back-to-backs. I think he started skating again on Friday. So he got a chance, and then, of course, the Jets sent Mikhail Burden down to the Moose today. They sent Arvid Holm to the taxi squad. Eric Comrie was on the ice backing up Connor Hellebuck tonight. And I would think that I know it's a critical game, and they need to win. But, I mean, Connor Hellebuck, as much as he loves playing, and as you know, I just don't think he looks sharp. I haven't thought he's looked sharp in a while now. And I think that giving him a night off is probably a good thing. I think Eric Comrie, if he's capable of being a backup right now, like sitting in the backup role, then he's capable of playing as far as I'm concerned. And so my suspicion would be that they'll give Eric Comrie the start against the Canucks. I think it just makes a lot of sense because Connor Hellebuck needs a night off. He can't play all these games. He's got a tough game against St. Louis on Saturday.
3 and 4, right?
Yeah, so I would just think that you give Connor Hellebuck the night off on Thursday and allow and you give Eric Comrie a chance to go in there, play against the Canucks, and we'll see what happens.
Very well articulated there, Mr. Minuk. Obviously, time will tell because it certainly hasn't been that Connor Hellebuck has been leading the Jets to victory. So, Eric Comrie, I think, is deserving an opportunity, and it makes sense. He is comfortable against Vancouver, having played against them a couple times already this season, if I recall correctly.
And you have the break coming up right after the Philadelphia game next week, the All-Star break, right? So, yeah, I would lean towards Comrie. Obviously, Dave doesn't know with 100% certainty, but also listening to what Dave Lowry said when asked about Comrie, he was kind of hinting that, the Vancouver game was an option for him. So it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Dave Lowry's made a couple comments in tonight's post-game presser, courtesy of our buddy Murat Atesh. This is on his Twitter feed. Dave Lowry on tonight's loss in 4 parts. 1, I think we made a lot of mistakes. 2, Lowry referencing Morrissey's last-minute addition to COVID protocol. 3, following up on the Morrissey comment, quote, "You're putting some guys in positions where they haven't seen anything like this." And then number 4, he praised Florida for their effort tonight. I mean, the Jets were certainly undermanned to some degree, but that doesn't explain, I think, a lot of the performance tonight and a lot of the warts that we've seen on this team over the last little while is deeper than just, being without some guys on the back end in tonight's contest. They're just too easy to play against. And I go back to how I started the post game. There's just an absence of an identity right now. And that to me is a problem. If a team doesn't know and doesn't demonstrate the style of play they want to exemplify, Dave, then it's no wonder that they're inconsistent from game in to game out. If you were to say the Jets need to do X, Y, and Z to win on a nightly basis, I'd be hard pressed to tell you much more beyond X of score more goals than the opposition, and that to me is a problem.
Yeah, and I think you're right, and I think we've really hammered that point home. I think that there's, and I don't disagree with what was the points Murat made. Right, that to me was what we saw in the game. Mistakes were made. The Jets didn't play as hard as they could have, and as a result, you end up with goals in the back of the net. I think, like I said, I don't think Connor Hellebuck has been who they've wanted him to be and who they've traditionally been able to rely on him to be throughout the course of a number of seasons now. And I think as a result, when you lose that ability to have Connor Hellebuck bail you out and he becomes just like everybody else, which is, prone to errors and mistakes, well, suddenly things are happening that you may not have experienced in the past. So, and with all the negativity and with good reason, when you're in a slide the way the Jets are, and with the way, the climb is going to be that much more difficult, even with plenty of runway ahead for the season, there are some positives, and one of the things we need to talk about is the play of Cole Perfetti, because today was his 9th game. Of course, tomorrow will be Thursday would be game number 10. So that would be the determining factor as to whether his entry-level deal would slide or not. And instead, they obviously would have had the option to send him back to the Moose for the majority of the season, provided they needed him again. Of course, the reality is he is not going to be going anywhere, just because Darren Dreger alluded to it, although it sounded more like conjecture than knowledge, basically saying it sounded like the Jets were inclined to keep him. I don't see how you can send him back. Because A, you need him. B, he's playing extraordinarily well. And I said this on Twitter, and it's true. Like, we're seeing now in Cole Perfetti, and it's early, and I don't want to give the kid a crown just yet because he's still very young. But the truth is, we're seeing in him in the NHL what we I say that collectively, but it wasn't that many people saw in the AHL last year, which was, a kid who was perimeter last year and got a lot of points on the power play to start. So people were like, oh, he's getting a lot of points, but a lot of them were from the perimeter and on the power play. Then suddenly he started going to the interior of the ice, and you're thinking, okay, well, he's not afraid to do that. And he was creating. Then he was, again, his foot speed is still going to be his probably limiting factor, but his intelligence is phenomenal. His hockey sense is phenomenal. And some of the plays he made on the Pierre-Luc Dubois goal, when he got it over to Schmidt and then got it back and then made the move, didn't hot potato the puck. And his confidence to hold on at the NHL level and then get it over to Pierre-Luc Dubois. That's a positive the Jets fans can look forward to. I know there's a lot of negative right now, but if you're looking for something positive to kind of glass half full tonight's game, the play of Cole Perfetti, I thought was exemplary of a young prospect who's slowly but surely kind of acclimatizing to the NHL game. And like I said, especially when you put him with Pierre-Luc Dubois and Kyle Connor, he just looks comfortable.
Look, if they were to send him back to the Moose, they would lose all credibility. I think they'd lose credibility in their dressing room, and they'd certainly lose credibility with the fan base. Now, the fan base obviously is not their concern, but at no point in time in the last stretch of games has Cole Perfetti looked like he doesn't belong at the NHL level. He's been one of the more consistent players for, and who's replacing him on that line right now with Connor and with Pierre-Luc Dubois. They don't have anybody else. You look at the minutes in tonight's game, clearly Dave Lowry doesn't have a ton of faith in Christian Vesalainen, Evgeny Svechnikov, and Jansen Harkins, and I'll even throw in Austin Pagansky into that. Harkins played 644, Vesalainen 626, and Svechnikov 711. With Harkins in particular, anytime he appears to be on the ice, he seems to be noticeable for a good reason. He's doing something hard and fast. I don't know why he isn't worthy of more time on ice, because for a team that oftentimes doesn't do a lot of things hard and fast, you would think you'd want to reward those guys who do it more often, like Jansen Harkins.
Well, yeah, you're talking to, you're speaking to the converted, I guess, so to speak, preaching to the converted, because, Dave is the original OG of the Jansen Harkins Booster Club. And you know how much I like his game, right? Especially now that we're buddies with Brett Harkins, right, Dave? So, I would like to see, we've talked about it. How much of an impact can you have on a game when you play 6 minutes? Right? Like you can't have much of an impact. You're just, that's not enough shifts. So yeah, when you have this many injuries, like now is the time to give Harkins an elevated role. And, so yeah, I'm with you on that one, Drew. And kind of going back to what you said, or what you were asking about, Perfetti and, that threshold and everything like that. Yeah. Like, why would you send him back down? First off, the Moose are playing really well without him. Like, so it's not like, that's a reason. Well, are there contract ramifications? Yes. But Perfetti is a guy, by all accounts, that you're expecting to be with you for a decade and a half. Like, this is a guy that you want to keep. Obviously, we can't predict what's going to happen, 10 plus years from now, guys. But like, if you look at, if you're talking about the new core
prediction, we're still doing the show arguing.
No, I think by then our kids have replaced us. How about that? That'll be the prediction.
It's the next generation. It's like, Mason Marchment and, just the sons of former NHLers, right? So it doesn't make any sense. And I saw the comment. Sorry, I forget who had that comment up there, but that the comment was that the Perfetti pass to Connor cemented his place on the team, and obviously one play isn't going to do that. But come on, guys, like how many 20-year-olds can do that? So you're right, Drew. Perfetti's been one of the most consistent forwards, over the last 5 or so games. So
let's not forget the pass he made to Kyle Connor.
That was a beauty pass. That was the definite. That's like what a coach, just gets basically gets very turned on by coach porn, as Paul Maurice used to call it, right? I mean, that's just the stick to stick, tape to tape pass, from one amazingly skilled young player to a top goal scorer in the league.
And it's done with speed.
Yes.
I mean, and that's where you watch the Jets, and that line, the Dubois, Connor, Perfetti line, at least does things with speed. You watch Scheifele and Wheeler and Kopp, and there's no speed to their games. It's deliberate and it's slow, and no wonder they can't get anything going, because it's just too damn slow. There's not enough time in the NHL. You have milliseconds in which to make a play, really. And if your brain or your legs or your stick is a half a step slow, it's just not going to work. And you watch them and you see them try and move up the ice, and it just looks slow. And I don't know why it's slow, because none of those three guys are what you would describe as slow hockey players. Maybe Wheeler's lost a step from his peak, but he's still a pretty fast player, and they should be able to do things with speed. But every time you watch them transition, it's deliberate and it's not decisive enough. And no wonder they can't succeed when they're playing like that.
Well, I
have to get that out of my system.
Well, Scheifele, Kopp, and Wheeler, to me, I just looked at the advanced stats. They were actually the best possession line at 5-on-5. There was no finish. So that's the issue. In a game, it was a track meet. Drew, you said it at the beginning, at the top. I mean, this was a game, what were there, 5 goals in the first period, right? So, yeah. I mean, this was a game in which you knew the second period, it wasn't going to be, an 18-goal game, right? But like, you knew that it was going to slow down a little bit. But it was a game in which you needed that line to contribute, because we talked about it. Dubois, Connor, Perfetti, they did their job. Like they produced. And, the Kopp, Scheifele, Wheeler line, they had some chances, and they just didn't finish. And
Lowry Stastny line got a goal.
Well, and Scheifele's getting his points, right? Like he's nearly a point a game on the season, but he's been, a point a game on the stretch. So it's not like he's not getting his points, but you want an overall impact on the game. And
we talked about it on the post games or Saturday, whenever it was, in the plethora of shows we did this weekend, where you want to see him. Yeah, his points are nice, and yeah, it looks good on paper, but you want to see him take over a game, or you want to see him impose his will, or you want to see him put the team on his back.
Right.
And you haven't seen it. I can't even think of one game this year where he's looked like what I'll describe as vintage Mark Scheifele, because I'm wondering if that vintage Mark Scheifele is no longer here, and it's now a new Mark Scheifele that we have to get used to is seeing, because the Jets needed vintage, and they continue to need vintage Mark Scheifele.
Yeah, they need. Dave mentioned it on the Saturday morning show. Like he said, if Scheifele's at his peak and Dubois at his peak, then the Jets are going to be a very difficult team to play against, because even without Ehlers, and I go back to what I was saying about missing these guys. You can say don't make excuses. Every team is missing players, but when you're a team that's struggling like the Jets, when you don't have those specific players, it hurts you even more. Josh Morrissey is your top defenseman. I don't want to have a debate. I at least for me, he's the Jets' best defenseman.
Yeah,
I
agree.
You could throw Neil Pionk in there, but certainly this year I don't think it's much of a debate. But the point
best
is,
lefty, best righty.
Right, he's at the very least a top 2 defenseman, right? So when you're missing him, and then you talk about the speed, yeah, the Jets didn't look like a very fast team as compared to the Panthers tonight. Not saying that they're a slow team, but tonight and certainly on the road trip, you look at a team like Pittsburgh. Like Pittsburgh is, I think, maybe the most underrated team in the NHL right now. Like I think everybody kind of just wrote them off. If I'm in the Eastern Conference, and there's some good teams in the Eastern Conference, Tampa Bay, Florida, Carolina. I mean, we just saw Boston. I mean, they're probably going to be a wild card team. I don't want to play Pittsburgh in the first round with the way Tristan Jarry's been playing. But the point is here, the margin for error, Drew talks about an identity, but it just seems like the mistakes are just compounded, and every single egregious mistake that the Jets make seems to come back and bite them. We talked about the Carter Verhaeghe goal. I mean, the fifth goal, I mean, it's just not a good enough defensive effort. It's too easy for Anthony Duclair to come in there and, to come in with speed through the zone. And then, it's just too easy for Sam Bennett to come in there and get the rebound. What is Connor Hellebuyck supposed to do there? It's not Connor Hellebuyck's fault. Like, he was helpless there.
I agree.
I mean, I just think it's the Jets aren't executing. It's just not, it's not good. It's not fun to watch them right now. And I think, you're kind of, as we talked about, you're running out of time. I mean, you say Vancouver's a must win, but with this recent
they're winning
stretch
right now.
Well, with this recent stretch, the Jets are going to have to not only beat Vancouver, you got to beat St. Louis on the road. You got to come back and you got to beat, Philadelphia. I mean, Philadelphia, luckily, is basically past go and collect $200. But I mean, going into the All-Star break, you've left yourself no choice but to win all three of these games.
No argument from me, Mr. Ginsburg. Hardest hitting comment of the post-game show, courtesy of our friends at Tough Duck. What did you pick out, Ezzy?
Just brutally cold. So it's a good thing that we have this many toques to give out. We're going to pick John Rowe. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that.
I like how you always pick the people with the most difficult names to pronounce. I think
I don't.
Rayo, maybe? I'm going to say that's John Rayo.
Yeah. Rayo. Sorry, John Rayo. Plain and simple. You've got it up here, Drew. This team was rebuilt to win this year. Most analysts said it, and it's doubtful that they will make the playoffs. There's a serious lack of effort by most forwards to play 200 feet. And you know what? I like this comment because, I mean, he was on display. I mean, like, I'm not saying that, it was, every single forward was bad tonight. But just some of the goals that were scored, like on that, I keep going back to the fifth goal. I realized that wasn't the game-winning goal. I just think it was too easy, right? Like, it was just, and those were veterans on the ice, right? Like Brendan Dillon, Neil Pionk was the D pair, and then Paul Stastny was the forward that just wasn't quick enough to pick up Sam Bennett and tie him up so he didn't get the rebound. So I agree. I'm not saying that I don't know if I would say it's doubtful that they make the playoffs. I mean, it's the Jets are right in there, but like we talked about, I mean, you're running out of games. We're almost at the midway point of the season. So, we can't be talking about this a month from now. The February stretch where they play a lot of hockey is going to be key, but I agree. There has to be a much better effort from the forwards.
I would agree with that. Congratulations to John Rayo. You are the winner of tonight's Tough Duck hardest hitting comment. John, send Ezzy an email with your mailing address, Ezra@illegalcurve.com, or you can slide into his DMs at ICEZG, and we will hook you up with a toque, courtesy of our friends at Tough Duck, the sponsor of the hardest hitting comment on the post-game show. Also want to say a big thank you to our guests, to our other sponsors, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club. We didn't have any guests on tonight's post-game show.
Linden, we can have a guest. Should I see if Weber will join us?
No, it's okay. They got they're starting up right now. I think Kenny and Rennie are starting up in a couple minutes. So we'll wrap it up and let people head over there. I want to say thank you to our sponsors, Rumors Restaurant and Comedy Club, Linden Market Dental Center, Zappia Group Realty, Bernstein's Deli, Tough Duck, Boston Pizza, Seagram's, Rolly's Transfer, and our friends at Grid Park. Support these fine businesses because of their continued support of the Illegal Curve Hockey Show, the Illegal Curve Post-Game Show, and, of course, illegalcurve.com. That's where Dave M will have all of the post-game audio. Dave M, a quick minute, maybe even less than a minute, about your Manitoba Moose. I want to make sure we don't give you short shrift tonight.
I appreciate that. And the Manitoba Moose do not deserve that after what they were able to accomplish this weekend against the Chicago Wolves. The first game, I thought, okay, they're in tough. Chicago came in the number one team in the AHL. And what ends up happening? The Moose win. You're thinking it's always difficult proposition to win, a sweep a series, a weekend series. Well, that's exactly what the Manitoba Moose did. They didn't look good early, but David, his last name is DeRosier, but it's difficult to pronounce, but he was fantastic. And only his second game of the year, coincidentally, second game against the Chicago Wolves, and he was phenomenal. I mean, they were outshot 18-10, down 1-0 after one, and he thought, okay, that's the way it's going to go. Second period, more of the same, 3 penalties. They were outshot 12-4 But somehow Johnny Kovacevic, the guy who I suggested would be been a good fit for today's game to get his first NHL start, he scored his 7th goal of the season, which ties him for the AHL goal scoring lead amongst defensemen to make it a 1-all game. So you're thinking, okay, well, the Moose have kept in it, and that's impressive. And then the third period came along, back and forth, and the most unlikely of goal scorers, Nelson Nogier, the Jets draft pick, of course. He is a converted defenseman playing forward, which, of course, isn't easy for him to do. He scored a nifty goal about 7 minutes to go in the third period, and you can just see how the team pulls for him because the bench went ballistic. They mobbed them. There were obviously only 250 fans. They appreciated what they were seeing, but you could see how much elation they had for him to score his first goal of the year. But he wasn't done there because he's helped seal the deal with the empty netter to make a 3-1 victory for the Manitoba Moose as they swept like I said, undermanned, and I think they're missing in total. They're missing about 7 forwards. So their two top lines were missing, either injury or COVID, or obviously up with the Jets. But yet they kept on rolling. Their deep pairings are still very good with obviously all the young Jets draft picks. So they're 22-10, 2-1 on the season. Still 5 points back of Chicago. So it's not going to be easy for them to necessarily gain ground, but just an incredibly gutsy effort. They're going to be up against the Abbotsford Canucks, the Vancouver Canucks farm team. First time we'll ever see them here in Winnipeg, because of course they used to be the Utica Comets, but now they're the Abbotsford Canucks. So we're seeing them there Saturday and Sunday at 2:00 this weekend. Should be good. And one more comment I would make is it was really interesting, and we talk about in a lot of comments about the Jets and the Moose. And I actually had a really interesting email I have to respond to later from a reader/viewer who was asking about the Jets and the Moose playing the same systems, but it seems like 2 different teams. And this isn't a castigation on that, but it was an interesting comment from assistant coach Eric Dubois, who was speaking after the game on Sunday. And when asked about this team and why everybody just seems to fit, and why, he said, when they met with the leadership group at the beginning of the season during training camp, they asked them for what could they do to bring everyone in. And Johnny Kovacevic actually is who it was attributed to, said inclusion, being inclusive. And that's just how you see with this team. And so people wonder, how do you lose 7 forwards and still win against the top team? How do you lose, all your defensemen, Dylan Samberg, Ville Heinola, Declan Chisholm, Leon Gavanke, Johnny Kovacevic? Literally the only defenseman they had who was like a draft pick at one point was 2019 second rounder Simon Lundmark. But yet they have all these new guys come in, and everyone seems to just fit in. So this was a really good group last year to cover, and they've continued that theme into this year. This year has more significance because, of course, the Moose didn't have a chance to play for playoffs last year. They do this year. So, I mean, and a lot of folks are talking about it. And one of the comments about Cole Perfetti, I said, look, if Cole Perfetti goes back, it'll be the challenge for a Calder Cup potentially with the Manitoba Moose, because I think this team is good enough to push for one. So there's a lot of, it's interesting because we've saw it in the 2017-18 Moose team, which was phenomenal. The Jack Roslovic team, they were great, but when they lost their big guns, they fell off the map. This team is unlike that. So real interesting team to follow and cover. And we'll have plenty more on the Manitoba Moose on illegalcurve.com and in the Manuk Moose Minutes.
There you go. Dave M giving us the Moose update. That's how we'll wrap the show, because there's nothing Ezzy and I could say that could possibly be better what Dave M just did.
No. When Dave has a great Manuk Moose Minute, you just extra.
Just end the broadcast immediately. Just press the end broadcast button.
You're not going to
just walk away.
Yeah,
just mic drop it.
It's like following up Seinfeld doing stand-up.
No, thank you. Thursday night, the next post-game show. Join us back here after the Jets and the Vancouver Canucks right around 9:45 p.m. Big thank you to everybody for joining us. If you haven't already done so, smash the like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel, subscribe via podcast. Check out illegalcurve.com for complete post-game coverage. For Ezra Ginsburg, for Dave Manuk, I'm your host, Drew Mandel. Until Thursday night, we wish you good night and good luck, and thanks for watching the Illegal Curve post-game show.